On a cold October night in 1965, a man walked into his brother-in-law's house in Manchester. Inside, he saw something that would unravel one of Britain's most horrifying criminal cases. Within days, police would be digging into the ground of Saddleworth Moor and uncovering graves. But what they discovered inside that house was even more disturbing than anyone could have ever imagined. Welcome to Shadow Docket Files, where the cases buried in the shadows are brought to light. Here we dive deep into forgotten trials, chilling evidence, and the mysteries hidden in plain sight. Subscribe and join us as we open the files they don't want you to see. Post-war Britain felt safe and orderly. Communities were tight-knit. Children played outside until dark. Streets were filled with the sound of laughter, ice cream vans, and kids walking to the shops alone. Yet beneath this calm, the country was slowly changing. Urbanisation, new technology, and social shifts. This sense of security made what happened next feel even more shocking. Between 1963 and 1965, 5 children disappeared around Manchester. Their names: Pauline Reed, 16, John Kilbride, 12, Keith Bennett, 12, Leslie Ann Downey, 10, and Edward Evans, 17. At the centre were Ian Brady and Myra Hindley, one calculating, the other controversial, but both unforgettable. Before we get to how they were caught, you need to understand how this deadly partnership began. Ian Brady was intelligent, quiet, and obsessed with violent crime and extremist ideas. In 1961, he met Myra Hindley at work. She was young, ordinary, friendly at first. But after meeting Brady, she changed. Friends later said she adopted his interests, his tastes, even altered her appearance. Over time, the relationship became secretive, isolated, and then children began disappearing. The victims were lured from public places, streets, markets, fairgrounds. 3 were buried on Saddleworth Moor, a vast, isolated stretch of land outside of Manchester. The location wasn't random. The moor is difficult terrain, open, bleak, remote. For years, families searched, and then, in October 1965, everything collapsed. October 1965, 17-year-old Edward Evans accepted an invitation to a house in Manchester. The home shared by Ian Brady and Myra Hindley. It wasn't unusual. Visitors came and went. Nothing about the address seemed remarkable. But that night, something went wrong. Inside the house, Evans was attacked and killed. What Brady didn't expect was an interruption. Evans' brother-in-law arrived unexpectedly at the property. He stepped inside, and what he saw made it instantly clear that something was terribly wrong. Instead of staying silent, he left, and he went straight to the police. That decision changed everything. When officers arrived at the house, Brady was still there, calm, controlled, waiting. He was arrested at the scene. But the real turning point wasn't just the arrest. It was what police discovered during the search. Inside the house, investigators found evidence that suggested this was not a single isolated killing. There were items that connected Brady and Hindley to earlier disappearances. Photographs, personal belongings, records. And suddenly, what had seemed like scattered missing person cases began forming a pattern. The investigation widened, and attention turned to a bleak, open stretch of land outside of Manchester. Saddleworth Moor. Search teams were dispatched to the moor. Saddleworth Moor is not an easy place to search. It's vast, exposed, covered in deep peat, thick, dark, waterlogged soil built up over centuries. Every step sinks slightly. Every dig is slow. Police officers and volunteers combed the land methodically. For days, nothing. Then, the first discovery, a grave, then another. Each find confirmed what many had feared. The disappearances were connected. The terrain made recovery difficult. Peat shifts, landmarks change, weather erases tracks. Yet piece by piece, investigators gathered evidence. Clothing, personal items, burial sites carefully documented. What began as one murder had become something far larger, and the country was watching. In 1966, Ian Brady and Myra Hindley stood trial at Chester. The courtroom was packed. Outside, crowds gathered daily. Newspapers ran front-page headlines. Every detail was dissected. Both were convicted and sentenced to life imprisonment. Brady spent decades in secure psychiatric care. Hindley remained in prison until her death in 2002. She later claimed she had been manipulated by Brady. Some believed her, many did not. While in prison, Hindley continued her education and completed a degree in humanities. In a strange twist of history, my grandfather attended that ceremony and handed her the certificate. He told me he never liked her presence. There was something about her, a small unexpected human moment in the midst of one of Britain's darkest criminal stories. But even after the trial ended, one question refused to disappear. Keith Bennett was 12 years old when he vanished. Despite multiple searches across decades, including renewed efforts based on Brady's later statements, his remains have never been found. His mother, Winnie Johnson, campaigned constantly. She pleaded for information, for closure, for a place to lay flowers. She died in 2012 without knowing where her son lay. And that absence, the unanswered question, still lingers over Saddleworth Moor. Some stories end in the courtroom. This one never fully did. The Moors murders changed Britain. Parents became more cautious. Children were no longer allowed the same freedom. Communities locked doors that once stayed open. Media coverage intensified. True crime reporting became more detailed, more relentless. Public attitudes towards sentencing hardened. And one image, Hindley's mugshot, staring directly into the camera, became one of the most infamous photographs in British history. The case became a symbol of lost innocence, of betrayal, of a country forced to confront something it never imagined happening so close to home. Two ordinary faces, 5 stolen lives, a windswept moor that still holds unanswered questions. The peat shifts, the seasons change, but the history remains. The Moor's murders didn't just shock Britain, they changed it. And decades later, the silence over Saddleworth Moor still feels heavy to this day.